Joining us right now is Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. He is the lead Democrat on the Select China Committee. And given that you're a Democrat and given that this administration obviously is a Republican-led group, how do you think the dynamic fundamentally changes at this point?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of continuity between the Biden and the Trump administration.
You do?
And people like Marco. I'm sorry?
I said you do? You think there's going to be continuity? That's fascinating.
I think so. I think people like Marco Rubio and Michael Walz, who are colleagues of mine with whom I work closely, know that we have to work in a bipartisan manner. However, with regard to this tariff situation, if President Trump decides to unleash 20% across-the-board tariff increases on all products from every country and then 60% tariffs on Chinese goods, regardless of whether they pose economic or security concerns, I think that would be a big problem. It would disrupt our ties with friends, partners, and allies with whom we are working together to counter Chinese aggression right now.
You know, the prevailing view, though, had been that President Xi preferred President Trump. Why do you think that would be?
Well, I think that part of the reason or part of the notion, obviously, I don't know Xi Jinping myself personally. However, there was speculation that to the extent that President Trump creates instability, to the extent that there's some chaos in his policymaking that benefits Xi Jinping, sometimes the rhetoric is tougher than the actual actions that follow. All that being said, now we have to make sure that we succeed in our policy toward China because they are pursuing an aggressive tack economically, militarily, and technologically.
I think the view, by the way, on the other side is that President Xi, to the extent he wanted President Trump with it, was that he thought he was a deal maker and that there was there was a deal to be made. And the question then gets to tariffs and whether you think there is a deal to be made and what that looks like.
Potentially. However, I think that what's really important is to talk about strategic tariffing with regard to those areas where there's economic aggression, such as, for instance, dumping of paper or steel or aluminum or solar panels or electric vehicles. I think there we absolutely should come to an understanding and a deal, so to speak. Also, the purchase of increased agricultural goods from places like Illinois, for instance. I think those are important steps that the Trump administration should work on.
What do you think is a fair tax? If there were to be an across-the-board tax, is there any number that makes sense to you?
Across the board, regardless of which country? No, it doesn't make sense. I think it's super inflationary, and then it hurts our exporters, like our farmers, and then it disrupts those relationships. You know, the last time we adopted across-the-board tariffs was during the Hoover administration in 1930 with the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, and that did not end well. And I don't think we should repeat history in that regard.
When you think about the national security implications of our relationship with China and technology and the like, how worried are you about the relationship that they have now with Iran and how you think, and potentially with Russia, and to the extent you think that this new administration is going to have any leverage over them or not?
I'm very concerned, and you're absolutely right to, for instance, talk about the relationship with Iran and Russia to the extent, for instance, that we are exporting high-end semiconductors or even equipment to companies that are making semiconductors in China. That ends up, for instance, in the war machine that is pursuing this criminal invasion of Ukraine through Russia. Same goes for Iran. And so that's why, for instance, on a bipartisan basis, John Moolenaar, the chair, and myself wrote a letter this week to various companies in the United States who are selling semiconductor manufacturing equipment to what we call front companies for Huawei and others who are really should not be using our equipment to make technology such as semiconductors because it's used to modernize the People's Liberation Army or perpetrate human rights abuses against the Uyghurs.